because I think that's way more intimidating than a quarterback doing his six-shooter guns and pointing up in the crowd and doing all that other bullshit that's very self-promotional, but it's not about winning. When a quarterback's
You know, the NFL offseason is unhinged when Tom Brady, the walking embodiment of discipline, dynasty, and dad-core football values, randomly pops out of his media cocoon to side-eye a 21-year-old rookie. And not just any rookie. Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, him. The same Shedeur Sanders who just lit up training camp, went viral twice before breakfast, and became the most polarizing figure in Cleveland since LeBron took his talents to South Beach.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
And now, just when the Browns' quarterback drama couldn't get more chaotic, here comes Tom Brady, unprompted, ice-cold, and very pointed, criticizing Shedeur's individualism, questioning the depth of their own mentorship, and basically implying, "Kid, you're not acting like someone I'd really put my name on." Wait, what? Yeah, that happened. Let's break this all the way down, because Brady's words didn't just land. They echoed. The spark? Shedeur's now iconic Rolex Flex celebration. You've seen it. The wristwatch check. The icy stare into the camera. Swagger levels so high the grass started wilting. A touchdown dance so potent you could practically hear the endorsements getting inked. But for Brady, apparently, that moment said a little too much. In an interview, when asked about how the next generation of quarterbacks are branding themselves, Brady made a very thinly veiled reference to Shedeur's celebration. And it was far from glowing. When I see a quarterback score and immediately start dancing on his own, yeah, I cringe a little. The great ones don't flex by themselves. They go hug the O-line. They celebrate with their team. That's the kind of leadership that wins games. Let's be real, that's not subtle. That's Brady with a scalpel. And then came the kicker. When asked about his relationship with Shedeur, Brady shifted tones entirely. What was once framed as a budding mentorship, the GOAT and the prodigy, suddenly became something a little less friendly. I've talked to a lot of young quarterbacks. Some listen. Some just want the photo. You can always tell who's really learning and who's just playing a part. Just playing a part. Okay, now we're deep in the petty pool. Because, while Brady didn't name names, everyone knows who he's talking about. Shedeur's name has been everywhere. Highlight reels, debate shows, TikTok, training camp drama, and yes, even posing with Brady himself in what was supposed to be a mentorship moment that made the league go, whoa. And now the man himself is essentially saying that wasn't real. So now we have to ask the question nobody wants to ask. Was the Brady-Shedeur mentorship a PR stunt all along? Let's rewind. Earlier this year, Shedeur posted a now-famous photo of him and Tom Brady, an invite-only quarterback summit. The caption? Always learning from the best. It got millions of views. Commenters lost their minds. The next TB12. He's getting coached by the GOAT. The narrative was solid. Shedeur was putting in the work, learning from greatness, and humbly sharpening his craft. But now, Brady's calling that vibe into question. And people are starting to wonder, was it mentorship or just marketing? And here's where it gets juicy. This isn't just about Brady being salty over a touchdown dance. This is about legacy, culture, control. The old guard versus the new wave. The buttoned-up, post-game suit-wearing quarterbacks of Brady's era versus the drip-first, nil-seasoned, highlight-hungry new kids on the block. Because let's not forget, Shedeur is not playing by the old rules. He's not waiting his turn. He's not deferring to veteran structure. He's not toning it down for the comfort of his coach. He's showing up in designer fits, throwing dimes in camp, flexing like a star, and making it very clear that his time is now. And for someone like Brady, who spent 20 years perfecting the image of humility, grind, and subtle dominance, that probably feels like whiplash. So what does this say about Brady? Well, a few things. First, it's a reminder that even legends get caught up in generational gatekeeping. For a guy who changed the NFL forever, Brady's criticism of Shedeur reeks of that old-school discomfort with individuality. He's essentially saying, act like us, or you're not ready. But here's the thing. Brady didn't come up in the nil era. He didn't have 12 million Instagram followers at 21. He wasn't the son of a global brand like Deion Sanders. Shedeur's reality is different. He's not just playing quarterback. He's managing a personal empire. And yeah, he's celebrating differently. But he's also producing. He's showing up, putting in the work, and still finding time to inspire an entire generation of players who grew up watching both Deion and Brady. So now, the football world's divided. You've got the Brady's right crowd, old heads, coaches, traditionalists, saying, this is why young quarterbacks flame out. Too much flash, not enough fundamentals. And then you've got the Shedeur's not changing for anyone crew, fans, players, cultural commentators, saying, let him cook. He's built for this moment. He's redefining leadership on his own terms. And you know who else seems to have picked a side? LeBron James. Because the conversation spilled into other athlete brands fast, and suddenly LeBron's being lumped in, again, as the symbol of self-promotion gone too far. Critics are pointing to his Forever King Nike commercial like it's a Greek tragedy of ego, comparing it to Muhammad Ali's confident, but humorous, swagger. Let's talk about that comparison for a second. Muhammad Ali invented the athlete promo reel. The man rhymed, clowned, and boasted his way through racism, criticism, and war. But here's the difference. Ali was funny, self-aware, intentionally theatrical. He wasn't trying to convince you he was the GOAT. He was daring you to say otherwise. LeBron's commercial? Less joke, more throne. And now, people are saying Shedeur's wrist check is the next step in that same evolution. The move from playful confidence to pure brand theater. But again, let's be honest. This is the era of black excellence with receipts. And Shedeur? He's got M. He's not just flexing for the cameras. He's delivering. That 8 for 11, 3-touchdown camp day? That happened. His leadership moments? Documented. His college track record? Undeniable. So if he wants to dance, let the kid dance. And Brady? Maybe it's time to realize that mentorship in 2025 doesn't look like it did in 2001. Because here's the twist. Shedeur did learn from Brady. You can see it in his footwork, his poise, his command of the offense. He might not celebrate like Tom. He might not dress like Tom. But he's got the discipline, the drive, the vision of someone who's been taking notes. So what if his wrist check isn't Brady approved? It's still working. And while Brady's off throwing indirect shade, Shedeur's out here climbing the depth chart, winning over the locker room, and carrying the weight of a franchise that desperately needs a new identity. At the end of the day, the game's changing. The quarterback position is evolving. And if Brady's legacy taught us anything, it's this. Adapt or get left behind. So maybe instead of questioning Shedeur's authenticity, Brady should take a look in the mirror and ask, what's more important, that they celebrate the right way or that they win? Because Shedeur's trying to do both. And if Cleveland lets him, he just might. You know what's fascinating? For all the noise, all the whispers about mentorship and respect and doing it the right way, nobody's asking the most obvious, most blisteringly important question in this entire saga. What if Shedeur Sanders is already better at being a modern quarterback than Tom Brady ever was? Yeah, I said it. Let's all take a deep breath, unclutch the pearls, and sit with that for a second. Because that might just be the real reason Brady's comments stung the way they did. See, this whole mess isn't just about a touchdown celebration. It's not about a wrist check or an interview quote or even whether Shedeur calls Brady sir when they text. That's surface stuff. The real issue? Shedeur represents a future that Brady can't control. He's everything the league is becoming, and maybe everything Brady's not ready to admit it needs. Let's break it down. Brady's career was built on system discipline, pocket perfection, and Patriot-grade emotional suppression. You didn't see Brady dancing. You didn't see him flashing jewelry. He didn't take GQ photos in camp or run side hustles from the locker room. The man lived off the mantra, head down, mouth shut, let the rings talk. But guess what? That era is over. Today's quarterbacks don't just throw spirals. They build empires. They're content creators, brand managers, social icons. They're judged by both QBR and their ability to sell out a sneaker collab. Shedeur understands that. Not because he's arrogant, but because he's aware. He knows that his value to a franchise isn't just in his arm, it's in his presence, his poise, his ability to galvanize a city that's been football-starved for decades. And let's be real, Cleveland hasn't had this kind of energy around a quarterback since before Twitter existed. So when Tom Brady critiques Shedeur's public image, he's not just offering football wisdom. He's challenging the entire blueprint. He's saying, play like me, win like me, be humble like me. But here's the kicker. Shedeur isn't trying to be Brady. He's trying to be Shedeur Sanders. And honestly, that should terrify every old-school coach and commentator still clinging to 2003 like it's gospel. Because what we're witnessing isn't just a generational divide. It's a full-blown culture clash. On one side, you've got the tradition crowd. Guys like Brady who believe that quarterbacks should be extensions of the coach, not personalities of their own. They see celebrations as distractions, social media as liabilities, and self-expression as something to be suppressed until you've earned it. On the other side, you've got the new breed, quarterbacks who walk in the building with endorsements already lined up. Guys who command attention before they even take a snap. Who know that leadership looks different now, that it means authenticity, not conformity. Shedeur's not trying to prove he can be like someone else. He's proving he can be better by being himself. And that's the part that gets under Brady's skin. Not because he hates Shedeur. Not because he wants him to fail. But because he's looking at a player who's winning differently. And when you've built your legacy on doing things one way, watching someone else succeed on their own terms can feel threatening. Now, let's be clear. Brady's earned the right to speak his mind. He's got rings for every finger and a resume that no one's topping anytime soon. But when he starts criticizing the next generation for not following his playbook, that's when it becomes gatekeeping. Because here's the reality, leadership evolves. And Shedeur? He's leading exactly the way this generation needs. Let's talk about what the wrist check actually means. It's not just a dance. It's a message. A flex, yes, but also a claim. It says, I've arrived. It says, I'm on my time. It says, I belong here, and I'm not going to shrink to make you comfortable. And in Cleveland, where quarterbacks are treated like rentals and confidence gets crushed under the weight of failure. That kind of self-assurance is revolutionary. The fans feel it. The team feels it. Even the media, who can't stop talking about him, feel it. And yeah, it might rub some people the wrong way. But you know what else rubs people the wrong way? Winners. Let's not forget, when Brady came into the league, he was a sixth-round pick with a boring haircut and no expectations. He wasn't threatening. He was invisible. And that's why he was allowed to rise quietly, methodically, under the radar. Shedeur didn't get that luxury. He's Dion's son. He's been a walking headline since he was 17. He entered the NFL with more eyes on him than half the league starters. And still, he's performed with a level of maturity that makes most rookies look like toddlers in pads. So if he wants to wear a chain, let him. If he wants to dance in the end zone, let him. Because the realest part of the story isn't that Brady called him out. It's that Shedeur didn't flinch. He didn't clap back. He didn't hop on a podcast to start a war. He didn't even post a cryptic tweet. He let his game talk. And that's where this gets even more uncomfortable for the old guard. Because it turns out the kid with the diamond watch and the icy stare, he also happens to be the most composed, prepared, and poised quarterback in his entire draft class. And now, thanks to Brady's comments, the microscope just got even closer. Every game Shedeur plays from now on will be framed by this moment. Is he really focused? Is he really mature? Is he really worthy of the hype? And if what we've seen so far is any indication, the answer is a resounding yes. So let the critics rant. Let the legends reminisce. Let the gatekeepers clutch their playbooks and mutter about the good old days. Because the next era is here. And Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting for a permission slip. He's wearing the watch. Because it's his time. And here's the thing, they all see it now. Not just the Browns locker room. Not just the fans who've been through quarterback heartbreak more times than they've seen a playoff win. No, I'm talking about the entire league. Coaches, GMs, media execs, even those old football curmudgeons who still insist defense wins championships. They're watching Shedeur Sanders and realizing, this isn't a fluke. This isn't a social media mirage. This is the real deal. And just when the smoke started to clear from the Brady backlash, another wave hits. NFL insiders start leaking rumors. Quiet rumblings from team facilities. Text messages from assistant coaches. Conversations whispered between scouts at preseason games. If Cleveland doesn't lock this down soon, there will be teams lining up to get him. Let's pause. Think about what that means. Shedeur is a rookie, a day 2 pick who technically hasn't even been named the starter yet, and already other teams are strategizing how to pry him loose from the Browns. Because once Tom Brady made those comments, once the narrative shifted to Shedeur versus the old guard, the league saw the storm forming. And the storm's name? Leverage. See, this isn't just about mentorship anymore. It's not even about Shedeur's relationship with Brady or whether he dances too much or celebrates too hard. This is about power. And power in the NFL, especially at quarterback, doesn't just belong to the guy with the playbook. It belongs to the guy who moves the needle. And like it or not, Shedeur moves everything. He moves fans. He moves jerseys. He moves broadcast ratings. He moves expectations. And yes, he moves culture. So while Tom Brady's over here trying to frame the kid as immature or overly individualistic, what's really happening is that Shedeur's rewriting what quarterback dominance even looks like. He's not the first to challenge the system, but he might be the first to do it this well, this fast, and with this much attention. Let's not forget, Shedeur didn't walk into a perfect situation. He walked into Cleveland, an organization that historically eats promising quarterbacks like a Sunday tailgate snack. He inherited chaos, coaching dysfunction, a QB room stacked with underwhelming safe choices, and somehow, turned it into a movement. Not just a promising camp. A full-on franchise identity shift. Because now, every decision the Browns make, from who gets first-team reps to who addresses the media, is measured against the Shedeur effect. And Brady's public criticism only amplified that spotlight. And maybe that's what's got everyone so rattled. The fact that Shedeur didn't fold. He didn't even blink. Because he knows that as long as he keeps putting the ball where it needs to go, the noise will sort itself out. But Brady? He blinked. He said the quiet part out loud. He let the world know that Shedeur's ascension isn't just surprising, it's disruptive. Not just to game plans or coaching philosophies, but to the very image of what a quarterback should be. Shedeur has swagger. He has style. But most importantly, he has control of his image, his preparation, his teammates, the moment. He walks like a vet, talks like a leader, plays like a star. And that scares people, especially the ones who spent 20 years telling us you had to be quiet, boring, and borderline robotic to win in this league. But the NFL is evolving, fast. It's not just about arm strength or IQ anymore. It's about presence, command, cultural impact. And Shedeur? He checks every box. The Brady remarks, while coded in that classic humble warrior language, aren't really about team celebrations. They're about control. They're about reminding the new generation that there's a right way to lead. And it just so happens to look exactly like Tom Brady. But maybe, just maybe, there's another way. A way where leadership isn't stripped of joy. Where confidence isn't mistaken for selfishness. Where charisma doesn't threaten chemistry, it fuels it. And Shedeur? He's living proof. Watch him on the sideline. He's not barking at coaches or sulking when he's benched. He's engaged, coaching up teammates, supporting the guys in the huddle, leading. Now let's be honest, he's not perfect. No rookie is. He still rushes throws, still misses reads, still has that little chip on his shoulder that occasionally flares when a camera's too close. But that chip, it's what keeps him dangerous. And if you ask his teammates, that fire is what makes them believe. Because behind all the flash and flare and social media clips, this is a quarterback who works, who studies tape, who lives in the gym, who shows up early and stays late, who leads by example even when the spotlight's off. And if that sounds familiar, It should. That's the same DNA that made Brady who he was. So maybe the truth is this. Shedeur Sanders is exactly what Tom Brady used to be, just in a different era. The poise, the drive, the chip on the shoulder, the obsessive preparation. The difference? Shedeur doesn't hide it behind a modest smirk and a bland press conference. He lives it out loud. He wears it on his wrist. And if the GOAT can't handle that, maybe it's not Shedeur who needs to evolve. Maybe it's time for the rest of us to stop measuring greatness by how quietly it walks and start measuring it by how far it reaches. Because if this week proved anything, it's this. Shedeur isn't just here to play the game. He's here to change it. And if Brady doesn't like the dance, too bad. It's still Shedeur's time.